Hi once again, everyone. Welcome to another University of Houston Alumni Association video interview. I'm Tom Franklin, and today my guest is Trey Wilkinson, a University of Houston alum who is now president of Select Asset Management. Trey, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate you inviting me.
All right. Where did Trey Wilkinson begin? Where'd you grow up?
San Antonio, Texas.
San Antonio. Home of the Alamo. Davy Crockett. No.
Well, Davy had a bad day at the Alamo, I'm afraid, but certainly he's a Texas hero. But native Texan, born and raised in San Antonio, and left there in the fall of 1988 to come to the University of Houston. Tried to become the next Fred Couples. That didn't quite work out.
I see. So it was golf that lured you to Houston.
Golf was the initial thing that opened up my interest in the University of Houston. Obviously, Coach Williams and his 16 national championships was the reason why I looked at the University of Houston in the first place. Once I did, learned about the honors. It was the honors program then, now the honors college. Learned about the College of Business, now the Bauer College of Business. Really opened up my eyes to everything the University of Houston offered. I was intrigued by playing in the Southwest Conference, which immediately dates both of us, I'm afraid. But wanted to play in the Southwest Conference, 3 hours from home, but not too far that you couldn't get home if you needed to. And when I was about the 6th or 7th grade and I found out what a scholarship was, I thought it'd be great if I could go to college on some sort of a combination of an academic and a golf scholarship. And that's exactly what the University of Houston offered.
So you got two birds with one stone.
I did. So came here, and the rest is, I guess, history.
So when you get into business, and I've known you for a long time, but for people who don't, you do a lot of things with numbers. You do stats for the Astros, and you're an official scorer, and you do stats for here at the University of Houston in football and basketball games. Where did your fascination for numbers come from?
My dad's a CPA, so I'm sure that is a big part of it. Although I must admit that I took my first accounting class in the Bauer College, and I realized I'm not a CPA, I'm not an accountant. But I've always have worked with numbers, and my dad was kind of a stats guru. He was always keeping numbers on his own, just for his own benefit, and I guess it kind of rubbed off on me in a lot of ways. So being around sports, certainly my father had an awful lot to do with that, just the exposure to sports as a whole, and then the ability to use the numbers to do something while at the games in addition to just being a fan is certainly, I've done that for a long time now, as you well know.
Yeah, you certainly have. So you get here to the University of Houston. Did you play any golf on the golf team, or did you not quite get that far?
I played a little bit, but not as much as I hoped or as I would have liked to. But there's, my skill level, unfortunately, wasn't as good as the folks I was playing against, and that was a testament to the program we had at the time. But I did play a little bit, but I think my biggest contribution to the golf team was my GPA, and I did graduate on time. So for the NCAA mandated graduation rules, those were probably the best things that I contributed. But great experience. I've stayed in touch with a few of the guys on the team, but I probably stayed in touch with more fellows or folks from the Honors College, the business school, and then I was in a fraternity when I was in college, and certainly those are probably my closest friends are from that area.
All right, in the classroom days, what things do you remember most? What memories do you have from your classes, professors, classmates?
Well, there's several of them. For anyone that's an Honors College alumnus, you'll remember this. The Human Situation course, which is kind of the rite of passage for any Honors College freshman. It's an English literary class where you read what we consider to be the great books. The fall is kind of the classics, Plato, Aristotle, the Greeks, the Romans, all that. And then the second half, which is in the spring, is kind of the Renaissance up to the 20th century at the time. But that was a real trial by fire. Reading and making arguments, and then having to defend those arguments in a small classroom setting. The Human Sit, which is a great class that Ted Estes and Bill Monroe, Ted was the dean, Bill is currently the dean, and the faculty created, and it's the one thing that every Honors College alumnus has in common. And it's a tremendous class. When you're going through it, it's horrible, but it really stretches you as a freshman to learn. From a business standpoint, I would say my marketing courses, I really enjoyed those, and that was ultimately was my undergraduate degree, was marketing. I remember taking a class from Dr. Lentz in political science. That class still sticks out to my mind. Dr. Lentz was a fabulous person and a fabulous professor, and although that wasn't part of my discipline, I didn't want to go through the University of Houston experience without taking a class from Dr. Lentz, and he had a unique way of teaching that was great. those are the ones that kind of jump out. But certainly the business curriculum through both the Honors College as well as what is now Bauer. I guess the term is history is often better remembered than it was lived. We were definitely stretched, and that's part of the educational experience, both from the Honors College as well as Bauer.
Now, as a student here starting in '88, you went through the Heisman Trophy year with Andre Ware. What do you remember about that and the campus community at that time?
It was fantastic. It was everybody was obviously coming together. Everybody was very excited. Andre, who's a terrific individual, was willing to do all the things that are necessary to go through a campaign like that. And I say that because a few years later we had another quarterback who wasn't quite as willing to go through everything. This is when I was working in the athletic department. But Andre was a great quarterback, a great leader. And I remember taking a road trip with some of my fellow classmates up to Little Rock, Arkansas. We played the University of Arkansas in a game that was more like a track meet than anyone else. Of course, as we were on probation, so we could not be televised. And we lost that game 45-39. But making the road trip up to Arkansas, the 8 hours both ways, and Andre played magnificently that day. And although we didn't win the game, Arkansas, I think, was certainly a top 10 program. And it certainly helped with his campaign. And then I remember vividly, we played Rice the last game of the year. This was before. Now that the Heisman Trophy is a big presentation.
That's the big deal now.
Right, but back then they just kind of announced it. And CBS was going to do the announcement. We played Rice in the afternoon. It was a dreary area at Rice Stadium. I think we won 64-0. I hustled home to get in front of my television in time to watch the announcement. And Andre won the award. And just a sense of pride. That was immense, certainly for his accomplishment, but also for the University of Houston, because so many people said, well, you can't, it was a gimmicky offense, or the team was on probation, so there was all these negative reasons why he couldn't do it, but yet he did it, and it was great. And obviously Ted Nance, the sports information director at the time, had a heck of a lot to do with that.
Yes, he certainly did. All right, so when you were a student, you went to football games in the Astrodome. Mm-hmm. Now you attend them on campus at Robertson Stadium. Compare the two. Or is there a comparison?
It's difficult to compare the two for a couple of reasons. I prefer them on campus, first of all. The outdoor stadium is fantastic for the most part. I mean, sometimes it's a little warm in the summer, or August if we're playing a game in early September, but as you know, fall is some of the best weather that we ever have, and playing those games in October and November, it was always kind of disappointing to have to go inside the Astrodome. We had this beautiful day outside back when I was in school, so I really enjoy the atmosphere that we now have created with Robertson, certainly with the tailgate village, and it seems to be more of a sense of camaraderie. I think it's easier to get students over. The dome at the time, this would have been obviously late 80s, early 90s. We were so good back then that a lot of times the games, I hate to say this, were almost boring. We would just blow teams out. A lot of times by the third quarter, particularly if it was a nice day, there'd be people saying, let's leave the game and go out and enjoy the sunshine and the nice weather. The dome was great, I think, when we started playing there in the 60s, because it was unique for the University of Houston, certainly unique to the city of Houston. And that luster kind of wore off.